Hello, welcome to presentation on cultural applications. This is 1.002 in version 1.002, and it's a bonsai upgraded software presentation. The problem with culture is that in trying to understand it, it's slippery in that once you explore one avenue of thought, you quickly slip into an off-topic discussion. And also, it's balloonable. If you try to follow the avenue of thought again, it quickly balloons to a larger and larger topic, and you lose track of what you were saying. The approach for this presentation is that it lowers the boundary to two clear problems: the drug problem and the identity politics problem, and try in doing so it tries to minimize these two off-topic problems. This presentation will introduce a number of frameworks and then apply the frameworks to the drug and identity politics problem. Recently, there has been a number of PC strategy games that are introduced that moves from the basic to the advanced simulation of government. One of those games is Civ 6, and it simulates culture as an aura. Here, that emanates from a city. Here's a city, and the tiles have an aura that and it's boosted via building cultural buildings in the city, and in the game it sort of establishes your boundary. The nice thing about this framework is that it tries to approach culture from the government's perspective. Large cultural trends rather than small cultural trends, and it tries to visualize what culture would look like and what culture would act like from a large perspective. It also introduces culture as an abstract quantity. Another framework could be sound. Culture, once it initiates, how long does it reverberate? Some cultures doesn't sustain past 1 year, while some cultures push through the resistance and last for decades or more. Another framework for culture could be fabric. We can visualize our diverse cultural fabric as a national cultural code, where each there's wear and tear around the edges, and each generation needs to add to its weave and the degree of the tear for different patches. Just like Civ 6, this zooms out to a national level, and and um, and it's very nice when you're considering culture from a government's perspective. There's this element of effort versus entropy. You have to actively weave to mend the quilt. If left to itself, it gradually wears and tears. The next element is the next framework is production. This is not an exact fit, but it's nice because it's what we're doing. We're producing culture and for other people to consume. It's more similar to the production of software. Last framework is radar. If we can visualize our attention landscape, each person's cultural radar, the number of elements that are readily accessible is limited. It goes towards the short-term and long-term memory. The short-term, we cannot hold 50 elements on the radar. So this framework is nice because what cultural sort of point is it really you really remember that's on your short-term radar. It's nice when you're trying to persuade people and influence their actions. Other frameworks include the scholarly field of cultural anthropology, the documentaries and books about the history of a certain culture or general culture, and also the cultural format tier list. In terms of this culture from the government's perspective, TV and movies are most are both easiest to understand and most pervasive, and games and music affect our youngsters, and books unfortunately have moved sort of they're not as widely consumed. The next topic is cultural mixers. Cultural mixers like Trading Places and Freaky Friday are a nice way of addressing the identity and the, 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 drug, 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 because they air out sort of the wear and tear of different cultures constructively. The air out grievances constructively. It views um, it views the self from an outside angle. So you when you have your own culture and the alternative culture, you're viewing yourself from that alternative culture. It's also a foot in the door towards an entirely new culture. The fear of the unknown is a very real thing, and it it is a bridge from a comfy place, which is your culture, to an unknown place, which is the other culture. And also, it sort of helps if it's if it's sort of a nice ending. It helps to sort of nudge the cooperation of cultures. And a slight detour towards physical mixers. Due to the disproportionate weight of physical proximity, uh, it it is like uh, the the mixer. Uh, it's you're in a comfy place. You're more likely to um, more likely to accommodate other cultures. So, what does Community Hub 2.0 look like? Where there's thousands of people um, together, a nice way to spend a weekend. The next section is government involvement. Where does what role does the government have in the uh, cultural production, consumption, cultural buildings? Um, we can have a healthy debate on this, but preferably it not be completely laissez-faire, because particularly for the United States, we have such a large quilt and a very diverse quilt. It 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 helps to have a healthy debate on this topic. And but also there's a caveat that this is a very large and complex system. Uh, it's easy to not help rather than help. And also, Theodore Roosevelt and other government officials were a knowledgeable cultural participant. Uh, he published books and contributed to the cultural code. The next section is counterculture. Uh, the countercultural movement started in the 1970s as a very legitimate movement, but as it matured through the decades, perhaps currently it goes a bit too far. It is the nature of the loudness to expand and the quieter cultural movements to contract. just like we have our runaway climate change, perhaps we have a runaway cultural movement as well. Uh, Applications Push with Red Foreman from that '70s show, and Poe with the Frontier and Arcade. Arguably, uh, Push with Red Foreman could also be as Poe as Red Foreman, but but due to this counterculture, uh, there is uh, we have to push um, uh, sort of dexterously because because um, uh, some pushes can be met with some cultures. No, I mean some pushes, yeah, cannot might not go through. Um, in the '70s show, um, previously it was a debate in the '70s between Eric Foreman and Red Foreman, where Eric wants to do drugs and Red says no. Um, in the, when they produced the show, the producers in a DVD commentary mentioned that they carefully modulated Red Foreman's sort of Red Foremanness. They, so when he does it too much, they would sort of remind him not to do so much. In the modulation, they made him cool, especially to the youngsters, so that young Eric Formans might have a path to become Red Formans. And more immediately, they can sort in making him seem cool. They can the youngsters can sort of relate to his perspective of, I don't want it in the house, I just don't want it. In terms of the cultural radar, there are fewer Red Formans, Roseanne Connors, and Marty Cranes on the cultural radar. So this path is gradually sort of more difficult. Poe with the Frontier. The youth, the youngsters have a lot of energy, and the channel for healthily sort of expending the youth energy is scarcer. And one of those channels is the disappearance of the frontier. Normally, there is a cultural aspiration and a cultural sort of ecosystem that orients around the frontier. A lot of the youngsters orient towards that ecosystem, and they consume the products, and they want to go to the frontier and make a living, or just expend their energy. And another ecosystem is the arcade. Uh, if you go to an arcade in the 90s, you will see a bunch of youngsters sort of standing around arcade machines. It's a nice bonding experience because you're standing, you're slightly uncomfortable, and but you're having fun. It's open to everyone, equally standing. Sometimes a 10-year-old kid or a older person would try to compete, and they would get in line and be and treated as equals. It introduces the discipline of sports to everyone who's participating, and it's a path to advancement and a point of aspiration. This presentation is placed in the public domain. Thousands of presentations and conversations will result in the complex emergence of new solutions. Every repetition contributes, and every repetition has a chance of noticing something new and different. It only takes 10 minutes to start your own presentation. You're able to download the presentation in the description, and please feel free to use this presentation in your presentation. Thank you very much, and have a nice day.